Cinnamon, where you gonna run to? Cinnamon, where you gonna run to? Where you gonna run to? All on that day, will I run to the rock? Please hide me and run to the rock. Please hide me and run to the rock. Please hide me, Lord, all on that day. But the rock cried out, I can't hide you, the rock cried out. I can't hide you, the rock cried out. I ain't gonna hide you down. All on that day, I said, rock, what's the matter with you, rock? Don't you see I need you, rock? Lord, 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 all on that day. So I ran to the river, it was bleeding, run to the sea. It was bleeding, run to the sea. It was bleeding all on that day. So I ran to the river, it was boiling, I ran to the sea. It was boiling, I ran to the sea. It was boiling all on that day. So I ran to the Lord. Please hide me, Lord. Don't you see me praying? Don't you see me down here praying? But the Lord said, go to the devil. The Lord said, go to the devil. He said, go to the devil all on that day. So I ran to the devil. He was waiting, ran to the devil. He was waiting, ran to the devil. He was waiting all on that day. I cried, power, power, power,
Bona tarda, benvingudes, benvinguts a una nova edició del programa Taula que organitzem des de GISER ja des del 2017. Estem a l'edició 26 ja i avui tenim uns convidats de luxe que ara presentarem i hem tot just començat amb aquesta cançó de Sinnerman de Nina Simone, una recomanació de la Jessica Murray. Bona tarda, què tal? Welcome, thank you for coming here.
Thank you for having me.
Jessica is one of the guests today, and she came specially to be with us, just with Mohamed Mahdi.
Ahlan, assalamu alaikum.
Walaikum salam. Thanks for coming also. It's a great pleasure for us to have you here today and all these 2 weeks that you will spend in Barcelona.
Yeah, it's amazing meeting all of those people, also artists, and meeting you.
Yeah, thanks. So we will start maybe introducing this radio format that we started in 2017. Taula is the word we used in Catalan and also in Arabic. Is this element that we use as a meeting point for having lunch, to eat, but also to work, to discuss, to see life run, no, in front of our eyes. And this meeting point for us is so important. So that's why we decide to create this space and to add this value, no, to record all the meetings, just to keep the track, no, and to exchange in this another scale of time, no, that is things are happening so fast, and after a while we forget about things, and we think it's important to keep this track. This radio is multilingual, so we are used to do taulas in all the language, from Catalan, Spanish, Arabic, French, English. Today will be mainly in English, just for you, and I hope for all the audience is fine. And also an element that it's important in Taula is that everyone can join and ask and discuss about whatever. And we have a script, but we will be flexible on that also. So, Juari, good afternoon. How are you? ¿Qué tal?
اهلا وسهلا مرحبا جيسيكا مرحبا محمد مرحبا بالأحبة. Thank you everyone to be here. Thank you Jessica, thank you Mohammed to be here. And we are here in 105 Avenue Diagonal in Gisser, in this intimate space, beautiful space with beautiful people, with beautiful weather. We are, yeah, completo, pack. What else? What else? We have Mohammed with us, and we are lucky, really, to be here with you. And also, just to be with you in this different time to share with you different experiences, but also all your experience in images photography, but in life too, who you share with us before in L'Observatorio this weekend, and you will be with us also next week for Art Photo Barcelona. But you were also in Minorca before. Maybe you can tell us more about this experience about Minorca and Trobades Camus.
Yeah, so first of all, I'm grateful to be here because, as you said, like the idea of a table is not just about receiving, but also to share. And sharing and receiving is always, I think, crucial because I wouldn't be here without the people I've met in my life. Like, you know, since I started this journey, one of them is Jessica here. And also, I think we are, with time, part of all the people we have met and encountered. So these encountered are very beautiful. So I feel like I'm the lucky one. So thank you for this introduction. So I was in Camus because of a project I have made, and it's a photo book about a fishing village called Al Max, one of the old resident in the whole Middle East, 200 years old. And it was a long-term project, you know, like encountering with people losing their houses, and government are demolishing their memories and reciting them into a totally new place. And I was working for now like almost 9 or 10 years about this project. So yeah, we are making a collaboration with protagonists to write their last letter. We are photographing, collecting materials, archives, and we thought like it's a good thing to have a photo book, one of the structures that could live for a longer period. And that's why like I got nominated by Jessica Morai here, you know, to apply with my photo book, with my dummy. And that dummy has been to the final list, and I was awarded last year. So they invited me again to present the development of the project. So yeah, it was really good.
So this process to develop the photo book just started through the selection and incipients with El Premi Incipients, and you have a calendar, a schedule for the printing. You know more or less when the book will be ready and accessible for.
We hope
everyone.
that if we present it at this edition, but unfortunately like it took us more time to investigate and research other chapters. So I hope it's gonna be out maybe in next November.
Nice.
I hope so. But,
November of 2025?
Yeah.
25.
This November.
This
yes,
November.
at Barry Photo. We hope we launch it there.
Inshallah.
Inshallah.
It will be great.
Yeah.
So this is the third incipient prize, and before you it was Abdo Shanan, the first on winning this prize,
Yes.
and after Rihab El Dalil.
Yes. And I think they are all nominated by
I
Jessica.
know, I'm incredibly proud.
Really?
I'm
You are
very proud.
You're so responsible of pretty much everything.
Well, it's thanks to ADPP.
Yeah.
No, it's thanks
Yeah.
to the Arab Documentary Photography Program.
Yeah.
Because they all were part of that program.
Yeah.
She knows how to pick a winner. Like
Well,
Yeah.
we all had photo book dummies. We all had great projects that were at that stage that was ready for this type of thing. No, it's always very interesting when you nominate people. I take it very seriously. I'm very responsible. No, so figuring out who actually is ready to receive something like that, and who might have a great project, but they're not at the stage where it's yet ready to be a book. No, it's figuring out exactly what, there's a lot of photographers making amazing work and doing amazing things, and there's not so many awards and prizes. No, so it's really figuring out which one is suitable for who. And all three of you have were really ready, so it's great. I'm very proud of you.
I think this is also important, the idea again of sharing like people are experiences around you that also take you from your hand to another place, another stage in your life, which always like now when young photographers or storytellers in Egypt comes and asks me all of these relevant questions that we had when we start, and you share it with them, it's kind of like you passing always your knowledge, your experience, and we grow kind of together in that matter.
But when you talk about growing, that in which moment you decide to start photography?
Who said it again?
In which moment you start to be a photographer or just to take in photography?
It happened when I settled in Alexandria, when I was in my father's workplace, and his co-worker, like she asked me, like, you know, do you want to do something in your life? And I was saying, yeah, I want to do something with my life. And she mentioned a couple of fields I can start with. And actually, when she said photography, it really clicked with me, because my uncle was always taking pictures, and I was the one very close to him. And I saw this importance of like making memories. And actually, I felt back then like, okay, I want to also make images. But later, like after doing photography when I was 14 years old, it was back in 2011. I actually, after a couple of years, I felt like, you know, those images is not just photographs. It's like memories that you can hear, you know, the sounds in those images, you know. It reminds you, it works as a reminder from time to time, which I got fascinated even by, you know, the people I'm meeting and those encounters and those conversations that is happening. I felt like I'm learning a lot, you know, in a very young age, which I'm lucky about that.
Yeah, I think that is so important and has to do with the presentation you did last Saturday, no? Explaining all your projects that are developed in Alexandria, how you are reaching these communities to build up not your personal archive, but a collective memory, you know, finally with the documents that allow you to know better the people, but also the neighborhood, the process they are living. No, that at some moments like Moon Dust, no, this project is so powerful, no, and has to do with a process of disparition of the industries in the big cities, as we know also in Barcelona, and there are processes that are so close with the experience in Barcelona, and how industries here in Poblenou were connected with the neighborhoods, and how the diseases were so common in the neighbors, no, and how finally the industries took out from the city centers, no.
But it's kind of interesting that you talk about it as if it's in the past, because one of the big things happening in San Adrian is and it's happening right now with the incineradora.
Right. Yeah.
No, I mean, in the past, I think very similar to Moon Dust, slightly different. But, you know, when you said that they take advantage of the cloudy skies to really burn up, that's exactly what they do in San Adrian.
Right.
No, they had a really great exhibition in Patilimona about this. And the high index of cancer here as well, in that neighborhood in particular. You know, that all of the activists are tracing it to the incinerator that's there, but there's sort of pushback by the local government because they don't want that to be exposed, because it's zoning problems. Why do we have residential next to industrial?
That's right,
Yeah.
But this collective fight finally reached the goal to keep the industries out, but as you said, this one is so big,
it's still
and
there.
it's still there,
and it's still there. No, and they just kind of hide it. They made the green garden on
green
the roof
walls
of it.
all around,
like,
but they are still building up buildings, and in the Ronda you can see them
exactly. No, exactly.
brand new buildings.
And this is like the beautiful and impactful also the power of the photography, that how we can connect different realities between Egypt or Barcelona or Algeria or another country, and how we can feel really close with each other also too.
I think I agree with you. It's very powerful because, like, photography as a medium, it travels so fast. It's a language that could be understood by many people. And at the same time, I feel like, as Jessica said, this word exposed, like you are exposing something that a lot of people could relate to. Maybe in the old days, without the press, without the storytellers, you know, like few people knows, but now the power of storytellers and media and social media, you know, how we use it, how it moves things. Sometimes it creates this pressure even more because it gathers, like I remember our revolution, because of social media, people gather so quickly in places, you know, to do certain actions, and now it's even faster. Like some government, and I believe my government are one of those, they are afraid of being exposed in a lot of aspects, because maybe in the old days you cannot control someone greediness, like he's greedy, like he want to do, for example, a factory, he want to do a business, but he doesn't care about people around it. But now you have to care, you have to think 10, 100 times before you do something, that if people knew about it, you know, it's always like that, which is important.
But also, like in your photography, in your work, we can see kind of activism, or kind of muqawma, kind of resistance in certain way. That maybe if it's possible to talk about your relationship with the photography, like a medium.
I think I'm not always satisfied with just creating pictures, because the way I grew up in photography is always like, you think like it's your image, you are making something, the power dynamics that we feel when we hold the camera. It's like, you know, it's a feeling, like you go to someone and usually when they see a camera, they feel like, wow, like it's something powerful to be in front of a camera, you know, and I always feel like I want to break that, you know, not just to be about myself, the images I'm making. So this feeling has been always going with me, and the idea of helping others. It's not just about the medium, but I started to use the medium in the way I was growing up, how to help with that medium. And I think all the projects that I'm doing, it's all about helping people. You know, it's about just exposing a narrative that usually you never hear about, or a narrative that is hidden, or those hidden communities. And I mean by hidden communities that usually like the government forgets them because of maybe education, or because they live in certain areas that is not important, or in areas that, you know, away from like the centers, and you know, they are there. No one, for example, no press going there. No one, even like that project Moondust, I was passing every day by this neighborhood. I never thought that there is a problem happening inside, because it's very isolated, and you never imagine until you go inside and ask people. So I think like photography is for me a tool. Like if I'm gonna immerse myself, I need this to have a value at the end. Like, okay, I will take all, for example, the responsibility of representing people, but you know, I will be like a circle who connecting people and the outside world, and then you find your way.
Yeah, it just makes me think, because you know, one of, so Mali, we know each other from ADPP, but I also know you from the photography and social justice program with Magnum Foundation. And, you know, this way that you talk about using the medium of photography and the dynamic between you and the people that you're photographing, you know, that power dynamic that becomes a collaboration. It just makes me think, for the people who are listening to this program, that there's this very interesting book that's called Collaboration, A Potential History of Photography. That is Susan Meiselas, Wendy Wald, Ariella Zolé, and there's two other that don't come to mind right now, but those are the authors of it, and it's a sort of rethinking and re-looking at what photography is and what does collaboration mean. You know, what's the relationship between the photographer and the photographed, and they look at all of the different examples over history since, you know, photography was first developed. No, so it's very interesting. I think it's worth making a note of that.
Interesting. Let's hear some music.
التحرير وزاع عمالي قديم وزاع عمالي سلام أصحاب قادي ذاك الحريم العنو طار غراب الخوف ورانا نسيم العنو طار غراب الخوف ورانا نسيم أيوة
Estamos de vuelta. Gracias, Jessica, por la recomendación también de la canción de Mariam Hassan, que nos gusta mucho.
Yes.
Estamos muy conectados también con el Sáhara y
Sí.
a través de varios proyectos, con Walid Aidud desde Argel y muchos artistas que han hecho Artifarity también
Sí.
en los últimos años, así que
Y ella tiene una voz increíble.
sí, sí,
Llega
sí,
directamente
en directo
al
además,
alma. Sí.
súper potente.
Sí.
No, thanks for sharing. And actually, I wanted to thank especially Jessica being here and being with us. It's a long story also. We met like some years ago with the 220 collective that
Yeah.
came to Barcelona for the first time with Fethi and Youssef.
Yeah.
And we spent a good time in Art Photo also. You were there. And yeah, checking your experience, it's so weird because we started projects that are so powerful in the same moment. So
Yeah.
in 2004, you started at Liquindoy,
Yeah.
no? And we started Gisr also in Tunisia at the same time.
So there's been so much overlap, no?
Yeah, I think it was a year of
Mhm.
so a lot of important things happen all around us. And with Gonzalo, can you explain to us how started Liquindoy for those that
So
doesn't
those
know?
that don't know, so at Liquindoy we started I was invited to organize a workshop in 2003 in Sevilla in the Contemporary Art Center. And one of the participants was this young photographer from Cadiz who was Gonzalo. And he said to me, "Hey, this is amazing. Maybe we could do something like this in my city." And I said, okay. And so he found the funding and we created a Liquindoy. And so we did a bunch of work. I mean, we ran for a number of years all over. In Cadiz, we'd do an annual program, and then we worked here in Barcelona with the CCCV. We worked in Madrid with Casa Encendida, and in Bilbao with Bilbao Arte. And, for a certain amount of time until we realized that, ya está bien, there was enough going on in Spain with photography that we weren't so needed anymore. And that's when we started sort of looking elsewhere. And we're invited in 2006 to organize a workshop in Birzeit in Palestine.
Okay.
And from there, made a connection with Open Society Foundation, started building a program in the Middle East. And that's, everything leads to something else. And eventually that led to the Arab Documentary Photography Program, which was founded in 2013.
13. Wow.
So that was a connection because of Susan Maisela. So she was an advisor for Open Society Foundations at the time. And ADPP is a collaboration between three organizations, which are Magnum Foundation, which Susan started in 2005, I think. And then AFAC, which is the Arab Fund for Arts and Culture, and Prince Claus Fund. So that was an initiative between those three organizations, and they brought me in to sort of design the program and to manage it. So I'm sort of the independent operator between those three big foundations. So we've now been 11 years giving grants to photographers from all over the Arab region. And we've now started a fellowship, which allows the photographers like Mahdi, who were part of the program, to reapply for second stage funding. No. So I think we've had a lot of crossover with GSER as well, because part of ADPP, the huge effort is to really not just give somebody a grant and then say goodbye, go off and do your work and see you later. It really is to help sort of support the building of a network with photography, or through photography in the region in different ways, through photo books, through exhibitions, through connections, through education, through... No.
And to establish these long-term relations.
And to establish
between
these long-term
artists,
relationships,
operators,
exactly.
and
Yeah.
it's somehow a family, no? Finally,
It
what we are
becomes,
I was
building
actually
up.
about to say this. Like, it's the way I think Jessica designed it. It feels like you are among your family. Even like you are not easy separated from them. We have a lot of common groups in between, and you feel like once you need something, you just reach out, and then suddenly it happened wherever you're looking for. And I think even the most powerful thing since the genocide happened in Palestine, and we all gathered, and then people who needed solution and a lot of help to other people, it was really there. Which is, even when you travel, at least you find one or two ADDPs in that place, and then you gather, or you talk. And I think this was the idea. I remember Jessica was always like, you guys use each other, talk to each other, because again, maybe you will not find the mentor every day available for you, but your fellows also will share, experiences, and they will have also other experiences. So talk to each other. This always also help you growing and developing your project. After the ADBB, which is really nice.
It sounds so familiar for us also, because with the residency program that we are running since 2010, it happens that when you move all around Spain, Algeria and Tunisia, all the artists know each other, and there are generations of artists right now, and also families get built up through the residency programs.
Yeah, no, totally.
And I think we are really lucky having you here in Barcelona also, because as you said, these points in common make us stronger.
For me, it's amazing having you guys, because when I moved to Barcelona, I ended up just living here, but so much of my work was out. My work is outside, and one of the things with ADPP was, at the beginning, there was no initiative to sort of bring those artists to here, because the idea was to look towards the region and within the region, not to look outside the region. And that's just naturally started to change. So now it's become there's a slightly different dynamic, but before we didn't put much effort into really sort of thinking of ways that you could see the work that they were making outside of the region. We were really channeling our efforts into that part of the world. So, I mean, I think it's amazing that now, that you guys are here, because it's interesting for me to see the work that you're all doing.
I might have a question for Jessica and also for you. Like, how does it feel like, because you have been witnessing almost the start of an artist's career, or maybe a starting of a project, and then you see all of these developments that has been happening. So how does that make you feel or realize, or if that have taught you something over the time when you see people going different places with their project?
Well, you see different things. Some people fall off. Some people have done one amazing project and then they disappear. And then you see others that don't. To me, it's like very enriching, because it's sort of, that is what shows the whole point of what it is that I'm trying to do. The same way, when you work on your documentary project and you see the result, and the result gets published, and the result gets the feedback that it gets, and the people respond. Well, to me, my project is that. It's creating these educational programs. So when I see that through those programs people get to a certain level of where they're working, it means that I'm doing something right. That's my project. That's my creativity. So yeah, it's great. I mean, like listening to you the other day in El Observatorio, listening to your talk, the way you talked about Mundas, the way you talked about The Doors Here Don't Know Me, those two different projects, and then also showed some of the work from the Sufi work, which sort of explains a little bit about what's happening in your head and why you look at the world the way you do. That was fantastic to hear you articulate all of that. Amazing. No, really. No.
Also, like what we noticed, like after this experience in ADDPP, there are some really strong link and connection between people which happen right now, and one of them is this collective Al-Qatawla, but you are part, Mohammed and Jessica. Also, you contribute also to build this project. And if it's possible to tell us more about this project, this collective, this initiative.
Yes, so AK Tawla started initially by Abdu and Rahab. They were thinking about this idea of alternative narrative, that we have dummies and usually we need a publisher, But the problem in our region, and I think also we had this discussion with Jessica, is that we always look outside our region because we don't have much resources and knowledge about specific areas in photography or in photo books. But when we look outside, it's usually a conflict happen between your narrative, your community narrative, and the publisher who needs you to compromise sometimes in order to sell it to his audience, which also he has the right, but also sometimes for you immerse it yourself and work it with your community, you feel like a sense of responsibility and ethics that you cannot change too much about that narrative. So it started out of a little bit of rage between them, like let's do something, alternative platform. So they started AKA Tawla, and also it happened in the same period of the genocide of Palestine, and also all of these news that we have been witnessing that it's not true with the big media, a lot of big names, that defaming a lot of reality and truth. So they said like we're gonna start with AKA Tawla, and then I joined in that period, me and Fethi Sahrawi, and also we started to have all of this discussion about what is the alternative narrative that we can do and create. And I think it was very powerful because, again, the idea of a collective, but also these families that a program like ADBB creates, is those small discussions that it's maybe discussion for a few minutes, but it's really have a last imprint on you or impact. Because again, like you need from time to time a guide, and sometimes we forget where we are going, and you need someone to remind you. And usually the collective thinking brings you back to your anchor again, like, okay, I think our aim or our purpose is, for example, to do this narrative, and now we are thinking, for example, about selling, and no, this is not the point, how to go back to this. And this is what happened like with our collective. We're having all of this discussion, about alternative narrative. We look for others who have the same feelings, and then we started to gather. We had like dummies, and we start, to collaborate. Like Jessica helped us, and then we got to visit many festivals, and then we're growing as a collective. So,
just to remind to the audience, AKA Tawla was born, as you said, at the end of 2023, more or less, with the beginning of the genocide in Palestine, and you developed a first fanzine that was printed just after, that collected the work of 9 Palestinian photographers. That is Tarwida.
So the way that came about is because the idea of the meeting between Abdu and Rahab happened in Arles, which is in July. And so that idea that, why don't we join forces and actually create something so that when we go to these festivals, we can, instead of just each one of us individually going around and, facing all of these sort of big hotshot editors, we can do it as a force. And so Afaq and Magnum Foundation gave them a small grant to have a table in Polycopies in Paris. And so they were getting ready for that. October 7th happened. And the reaction on our community, the impact of that has been devastating. It was really, really, and it still continues to be, it's horrifying. And so one of the things, there was the thing of why are we talking about photo books right now when what's happening in Gaza is happening in Gaza? How can we justify going to Paris Photo? Both Abdu and Rahab were very uncomfortable. And then, because it was at the time where you have to make a statement on October 7th, you have to, it was that whole time, accusation time, no? And so they decided, so the photographers that are included in Tarwida are the photographers in the ADPP family who are from Palestine, either from Gaza or the West Bank or in the diaspora. So including Randa Shath, who's one of the mentors. So that was like it was quick, it was easy to curate, So it was just literally, let's reach out to the photographers who are in our community, we'll just take the work. They gave them, each photographer's, yes, sure, edit it the way you want to edit. Rahab has this friend who's a designer who did the fantastic design, and it was super quick. And then the other thing that I think they did really amazing was it was able to be public, so they went to Paris with this saying, okay, if anybody says anything to us, we have our fanzine. No, and this will be our way of making a statement, because otherwise everyone was super afraid of, you're going to be in the middle of France with everything that was happening there as the reaction. But like what Rahab said is that they decided also to put a price on it instead of just giving it away, which the initial idea was just to give it away. They put a price on it and it just disappeared like that, and all of that money went to the two photographers who are in Gaza, Sameh and Samar. And then you guys made an edition, right? Together
Here in
with
Barcelona,
exactly
200 copies.
You did 200 copies and did a presentation of that
In
at
January
Patti.
2024
Exactly.
in Patti Llimona, with the room was full of people, and also the copies were
They
flying,
flied
so,
away, and that
yeah.
money also went to
Also
Gaza.
went, yeah.
Then in New York, they made another copy. I mean, the great thing is they made all of these different copies. At Magnum Foundation, we've collected a copy from each, because it's the same edition, but each one is done differently. The Barcelona one is the best one, by the way. That is actually true. It's very beautiful with the stitching. But it's interesting to see the different, for people who are interested from the artistic perspective, how the same printed matter becomes different in different places, but it's the same edition. And if I'm not mistaken, now there is the plan to do another one on Palestine and one on Sudan.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
Yes.
So the idea with, if I'm not mistaken, is that you still have, you go to certain festivals. I know there's the one in Cairo. I know in Arles that they're going to do that. I'm not sure of what the other ones are right now.
We're gonna have like Tarwida too, and we thought like about the first one has happening during the genocide, and we thought it could give an alternative narratives, but actually we also see that nothing really impacted that war so far, no matter images people are showing from inside. So we thought also about this is gonna be a different phase, all of these narratives, what happened, and we thought like we can discuss that in this second edition, and also the war of Sudan, because it feels like no one are talking about it, which is even larger than the war in Palestine, and a lot of things happen there that it's happening in silence, and
It's being ignored.
and being ignored. So we thought it's also important to have that narrative, and again, like the same way we need to collaborate originally with people like from Sudan and writers and also storytellers who made a couple of stories, and also we thought about doing another zines of educational zines, again to create this conversation or to have a dialogue in our regions, because usually we don't have a dialogue together, like we go outside and we meet outside, but we hope that we can have a dialogue together, like Egypt, Algeria, Egypt to Morocco, Algeria, and all of these countries together. And so we thought about this fanzines that could be educational about specific topic, and we reach out to people and they can write their perspective or answering a couple of questions, and we can create this book conversations that bilingual, and it could be a starting point of binding the region.
So one of the things I can say now, because by the time this comes out, because you have to edit it, the information will actually be out. They'll make the announcement. I think they're coming out tomorrow with the announcement of who the fellowship, the ADPP fellowship. So one of the things that ADPP is now doing is giving a grant for knowledge production. And so two of those projects, one is happening in Tunisia and the other one's happening in Somalia. And it's the one in Somalia is a festival that's is being created by Mustafa Saeed, who was one of our grantees. And he is basically the content of the festival, because Somalia is so disconnected from the wide Arab region. Even though they're included in the Arab region, there isn't much, they don't look towards the Arab region. They look either towards Ethiopia or towards the West. Is all of the content is going to be curated through ADPP photographers. So it's going to open up a whole opportunity of exactly what you're saying, of bringing people to Somalia, having those conversations with different Arab photographers, all who have been part of ADPP. So it's great.
Very nice.
Well, thank you for sharing. I think this flexibility that the collective have in general allows us to build up these networks and connections to give answer to the issues that appear. Like also how to help to Palestine from here. From Barcelona, it was the the most used question here in Barcelona. What can I do from here? No, and it seems like impossible to reach this connection, and Taruida appear like something that connects us from our profession, our interest, and also the way to help people, no, to escape from the genocide. And we will be always open to support this kind of initiatives, and through edition and through these cultural projects, we think and we strongly believe that we can support in many different ways, no? Establishing this network, or giving also more visibility to different realities that here in Barcelona or in Spain and Europe in general are completely hidden, no? Or invisible. We think our mission here has a lot of work to be done still.
Like, no, when you see the enormity of everything that's happening, and like you say, you know, everything that's happening in Palestine, the genocide, but then everything in Sudan, in Yemen, I mean, all over the place, not to mention also in Egypt and Tunisia. It's a different type of happening, but it's happening now. And it makes you feel sort of overwhelmed. But I think, you know, through does sound like a pitch, but through storytelling, you know, it is a way that you can, you know, can you imagine the world without photography, music, film? No?
I think also we were talking also with Mohammed, because we're talking about the photography and the practice of the photography. But before that, there is the human also, always.
Yeah.
And what is our commitment in all of that?
Yeah.
And how we...
I feel like actually this table, because we said like it's inspiring me, like why not one day we're having like a shared news, you know, letter somehow, right?
She's got a ding.
Yeah, it's like why not, you know, all of these beautiful initiatives like yours and Jessica and all of these different experiences across the region, you know, or even in Europe, like because we also share the same purposes, you know, alternative narrative, alternative media, you know, why we don't have like a news, maybe shared newsletters that may be happening from time to time that could actually have a lot of, you know, or brief, you know, about what happened in the region, what happened in the country, what happened with the storytellers in those areas, and maybe it could be our voice in the future, like, you know, or I don't want to say against, because like we don't need to face anyone, but maybe it's just gonna be a voice that binding all of us.
It's a register, right? You're creating an archive of what's going on.
Yeah.
What you guys are doing with these taulas.
That sounds great.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it's beautiful.
Yeah.
Can have it. Amazing.
So at this point, I don't know if the audience has also some questions to add, or
Comments or
please go ahead.
critics?
Critics. Well, why not? Some music?
Some
Yeah.
music. Let's
I
put on
have,
some
I
music.
have some music that Mohammed shared with us.
يوم ولد قامت عزة للأرض إذ أمست لنورك تنتمي الكوكب الأرضي الكوكب الأرضي حين وطئته أمسى حصاه يتيه فوق الأنجم في صلب عبد الله في صلب عبد الله أرست نورها في صلب عبد الله أرست نورها الرحلة الأولى بأمر محكم وهناك في شهر الربيع
We talked a lot about sharing images, so I would be curious to hear you talk more about the images you choose not to share, especially in a context of sharing images in a Western space taken from a space that has been used through history as a space where we just kind of rob images from the people living there. So I'm just curious about your feeling of sharing that space outside of it, and also maybe here, as I said, what you do with the images you choose not to share, if there are some.
It's really good questions. I think one of the important stuff I had learned from the fellowship with Jessica Morai was, when we are making images, we don't traumatize people again, and we don't dehumanize people again, because usually we have been invaded by a lot of pictures, for example by National Geographic in the old days, and looking at you in a certain way, and imagining you in a certain ways, and even some of those images were edited and photoshopped, just to be almost perfect, so like growing up, I felt like, we don't have to repeat those images again. If you want to talk about a drama, you don't have to make, for example, a dramatic image to talk about a drama. Sometimes people's story is enough. And also thinking about those ethical consideration, not to dehumanize a person again. For example, if a person has trauma from that cement factory and his body, for example, has a lot of, defaults, like if you say it that way, or like issues appeared on his body. You don't have to photograph it in order to say that this could be the story. Usually maybe you photograph them in another way, and I think this is what I have learned. Sometimes I don't show these images, and it depends also on the people, because sometimes asking them also, how do you want to be represented, it affects you. Like I remember in Moondust project, there is Ahmed, and he had a lot of surgeries in his body, in his heart actually, because of the cement factory. And actually I didn't want to photograph that because it looked really not nice. And he said, no, but I want you to show the people what the cement factory has done to my body. But otherwise I wouldn't choose a picture like that. I want to photograph him maybe in a beautiful way, in a beautiful suit, and talk about his story, like, in the caption or in the sound. So these usually the images I don't like to do or to show, because I feel like I grew up looking at those images that other people has done for wars, that we always have to see blood, we always have to see kind of a conflict in order to feel it, but I feel no, we don't have to. If this answer.
Just to go back about also is a question of Sami, that what do you do about the photography who you don't choose?
Actually, I think I have them on my hard drive. It's archived somehow. Yeah, like some photographs, like I took to people, and I love to show people images, like their images. And some people sometimes choose like to delete. They don't like their faces that way, or they don't like it, and they don't have to explain. And I feel like I should respect that, because I always had this fear, like if I woke up one day, and maybe an image or certain images have hurted someone, and you cannot remove that. With the social media now, everything is out there. Who you gonna reach and asking them to remove those images? So I think it's better always asking people, I'm gonna publish this. Is that okay? And I feel now I'm more like happy with that process, like or relieved, like in a way they choosing their way of representation. It's important.
And we were talking also in kind of intimate pizza framework about الروحانية and about the cycle of life, and about how the human in generally we have kind each 7 years a new cycle. And Mohammed Mahdi right now he is in which cycle in his life and his work?
28.
New cycle.
Fourth cycle, yeah. Fourth cycle, yes.
But related with the work and the project and the view and the approaches, there's something changing or?
I feel like in each project, of course, something changing. As I think we discussed that together. Like, you know, I'm trying to go back to nature always, because the more we grow and the more even we read books and other perspectives, it's important, you know, to have all of those in mind. But also sometimes being in the reality itself, it shows you that again, reality is something subjective, and no matter what you do, it's gonna be always subjective. So the question I'm always coming to my mind is, what if my narrative is being used in a different way, in a way that I don't need it, or protagonist doesn't need it that way. And I mean by that, like, it's difficult now to separate politics from what we do, you know. And usually, or sometimes, like, you find your project published in places or different texts that also you need to fight. That is not the original text that you have made. Or maybe when it's translated, it translated in a different way that, you know, it's not the same. And I'm always afraid of this, you know, that maybe your work is being used on like a pressure card somehow, or maybe being used in a different way. Like, I think I'm always afraid of that, somehow growing up now, because it's more I realize that everything we do is subjective. And no matter what you do, it's going to be always be subjective. So it's made me question, like, is the medium we do is the best thing to change or to help? I'm still in search for an answer. I think it's important, but I think it's not just about the photograph, to be honest. Like, I feel it's more about the system surrounds it, who publish your work, and also who help you to translate the work, or whose initiative helping spreading the work. Because also I was discussing with you today some initiatives you meet or I have met, and when you ask about, for example, the repetition, you find it not clear, you know, and you are afraid. So also I think it's important also to think about the system surrounds you as a storyteller, like who gonna spread it, who gonna talk about it, and how, you know, they're gonna also critique what you are doing. It's important. Like, even these kind of discussions that we have right now, it's important. Like, how did you did that work, you know? What made you do that work? Because what if I'm a liar, you know? Like, what if, you know, how do you trust me? And I think it's important also this media literacy that also we give to the audience, but also those questions that, you know, how did you make the work, you know, how? It's important to understand also the ethics of the storyteller, you know, his environment, what shaped him to do this work, his relationship. It's not just, you know, someone went there to do a project or created a narrative in his mind. So I believe this is not something going to change just by myself, but maybe with the system. And I feel like I'm in a search for that system now. To be honest, I have a good relationships now and network, which I'm always happy by these travels, like meeting, you know, individual, but also initiative. Like, I'm happy, like I'm knowing them. I think it's gonna make me think differently next time when creating a project, but the cycle of the project itself, whom I'm collaborating, whom I'm developing the project with.
Thanks, Mohammed, again. I think there's another question here. Si vols compartir.
So it's a bit related to what you were talking about now. The other day in El Observatorio, you talked about how you worked in these two first projects, spending a lot of time with local communities and really like sharing a lot with them. How do you think about making work in communities that maybe they're not so related to you and in shorter spans? Do you see yourself working in these kind of projects, or just really interested about this part?
I think, again, the way of creating a project is immersing yourself as much as you can. And this was always my mentality. Like, if I haven't lived what they are going through, how I'm gonna, you know, how I'm gonna, imagine it, or, for example, reframe the reality that is happening there. So the more you immerse yourself, the more you know, and all of these things. But also kind of like I grew up with this mentality that, you know, I've always been hearing that life isn't about just you. Maybe it's because of our culture and our community is more religious that, you know, usually you need to think about the collective life. So maybe like when I was 20 or 19, you feel like it's your responsibility, like to do that, you know, it's your responsibility to immerse yourself and all of these poetic words that you have been born to do that. But to be honest, like doing that for a long time, also you sacrifice your own life in a sense, because, you know, you don't live for example, being 19 or 20, you have to do certain stuff, but now you are immersing yourself in a lot of drama and a lot of stories. And to be honest, at some point, it was too much, you know, even if I want that, but you realize that it's affecting you and affect your mental health too. Until also when I was in that workshop with Magnum Foundation, and they got someone from Dart Center for Photography, and he talked also about how to release all of these, you know, negative feelings that we carry all the time, and not, you know, to just have it and hold it all the time. Because if you immerse yourself, you have to listen and you have to take all of that, and somehow you cannot live with this. So I'm trying to learn how to separate those feelings from myself from time to time if I'm gonna continue doing this. So it's important to take care also of yourself and not to also involve too much, because again, immersing, you can lose yourself. And I think it happens sometimes in cinema where an actor, he maybe really like live the character and it changed him, you know. So you need to visit a doctor. There is no shame in that. Or maybe, you know, you have also to separate your personal life from what you do, even if it's difficult, but you have to find a way if you want to continue. I had a friend who was telling me, if you're going to lose yourself, who's going to continue if you lost yourself or your mind doing those stories? So yeah.
So, thank you very much. Jessica, no sé si quieres añadir. Estamos en la última parte de la tabla ahora, así que...
No, I just think that was a very good thing to end on. Is I think for all storytellers, be them filmmakers, be them writers, be them photographers, is the idea of getting so immersed in somebody else's story. How do you negotiate that space? Taking on that responsibility, and how do you sort of remove yourself a little bit and look after yourself as well? So I think that was a good point to end on.
Genial. So thank you very much for coming, to the audience, also to you.
Thank you for having
spending
us.
this time together. And I would like to say thanks also to Sandra Monac, who is a bit responsible of this meeting this time with Trovadas Camus, who shared this prize with you, and also Observatorio, of course, Eugeni, Laura, all the team. Art Photo that will host us on the weekend, and also Fabra i Coats, City Council of Barcelona, no, Ajuntament i Generalitat, that give us support every time to have these activities going, so all along the year. So thank you very much, and see you next time, and hear you next time. Thank you.
Thank you, Xavi. Thank you.
Let's finish with a small sound coming from an artwork from Tony Serra, Abu Ali, with the music of the Egyptian Mohammed Abdul Wahab that we love, and I hope you will do so.